Hi, lovely viewers. You are welcome back to Easy Mathematics. We thank God for another day and another opportunity to come to you with a lesson in Basic 9. Today we want to look at factorization. Factorization. We've been able to bring the lesson on making a variable the subject to an end and substitution. Now, under the factorization, we want to look at factorizing expressions that have simple binomials. So we are just going to look at the first type in factorization. We have different types, but we want to look at the simple types in factorization. First of all, when we say factorize, what should come in mind? Now, factorize is from the word factor. Okay, it's from the word factor. So if I ask to list the factors of 12, you will notice that I will be interested in numbers when you multiply, going to give you what? 12. So these are the factors of 12. So anytime factorization is asked, or anytime we hear factorization, then we are going to take into consideration the common factors of either numbers or variables. So at the end of today's lesson, we are expected to be able to factorize simple binomials and know what factorization is. Now, in simple terms, factorization is simply putting an expression in a bracket. Putting an expression in a bracket. So if I am being asked to factorize this expression, then I can factorize this expression by putting it in a bracket. So let's look at how to factorize. Now the first one, I am to factorize this expression. Now before you begin with factorization, we are going to first factorize the coefficient of the variables. And when I say coefficient, I am referring to the value or the number in front of the variable. So the coefficient of AB is 16. In other terms, we will first factorize the numbers. So in this simple expression, I have 3x plus 4xy. And I'm being asked to factorize. First of all, look at the numbers. We have 3, we have 4. We are going to look for the highest common factor of these two numbers, then we will factor it out. But when you look at the highest common factor for 3 and 4, it happens to be 1. Apart from 1, they don't have any highest common factor. So we are going to factor the 1 out and say 1. Let's write the 1. Don't worry. After factoring the whole numbers or the coefficient of the variable, then you factorize the variable itself. Now look at this term, you have x. This term, you have x. So we are going to factor the common variables out, which happens to be what? X. Now the moment you do or you complete the factorization, you introduce a bracket. Okay? Because factorization is simply putting factors in an expression in a bracket. So once we have been able to factor the common ones out, once you have been able to bring the one which is common here and it is common to this one out, we introduce a bracket. Now when you introduce a bracket, you ask yourself, what number times this value will give me the first expression or the first term in the expression? And you notice that this number times 3 will give you 3x. Then we have plus. Now you have 4xy and you have factored x out. So if x is out, literally we are left with 4y. And also, if you multiply this number outside the bracket by this, you are going to get this. So our answer for this is x bracket of 3 plus 4y. So I have been able to factorize this expression by putting it in a bracket. Now when it comes also in factorization, always your answer that you've gotten, it should be equal to the question when simplified. So if we should simplify this our answer, it should give us the what? The question. And you notice that if you multiply this to this by this, you are getting this using the distributive property method. So what we should know is that when it comes to factorization, we are just trying to put the expression in a bracket by bringing the common ones in the terms out. Okay? Now look at the number 2. You have been given the expression 12ab plus 16b. First, concentrate on the coefficient of the variables. So the coefficient here is 12 and the coefficient here is 16. Now what is the highest common factor? We are interested in the highest. You know, 2 can divide this, 2 can also divide this, but 2 is not the highest, so we can't use 2. So the number that can divide this and also divide this, but the highest is what we are interested in. So therefore, our common factor, highest common factor for 12 and 16 should be 4. So that 4 should be factored out. So we will bring the 4 out. When you finish factorizing the whole numbers, now with the variables you have, we factorize by bringing the common terms out. So if you look at this term, you have AB. And if you look at this term, you have B. The common variable in each should be brought out, which is what? B. So now that you have factorized the whole number and the variable, what do? You introduce a bracket. Okay? Because factorization is putting the expression in the bracket. So looking at the coefficients, the highest factor is 4. So we have factored the 4 out. Now that we have the 4 out, we also do for the variables. Factor the common variable out, which is B. Good. Now that you have been able to factor out, introduce a bracket. Now we have 4b bracket of B. Then we are going to ask ourselves, what number times this will give you everything here? So if you don't know how to do it in whole, let's take it bit by bit. Now what number times this value 4 will give you 12? It's 3. So we are going to pick it. 3. Good. Then we ask ourselves again. You have AB. You have bring the B out. What are you left with? You are left with A. Then plus, what number times 4 will give you the value 16? Is 4. Now you have B and you have brought the B out. You are left with any number, that is it, you are done. So the answer for this is 4B bracket of 3A plus 4. We have been able to factorize this expression. So factorization is simply, we are looking at the simple binomials, which are only this. We have different terms, we have different types, but we are looking at only the simple binomials to factorize. Now look at the number 3. We are going to concentrate first on the coefficients. So negative 13, 39. If we are to factor out, remember, your answer should be equal to the question when simplified. So if I have negative 13, 39, I will factor negative 13 out so that I can be able to get the coefficient of the bracket. So now that I have factored 13 out, which is the whole number, and happens to be the highest common factor for negative 13 and 39, now look at the variable. What are common? You have x, so also factor the x out. Now I have bracket of, you have negative 13xy, and you have brought negative 13x out from this expression or from this thing. What are you left with? I'm left with y. Now what number should I bring here in such a way that when I multiply it by this, I should get positive 39. Now, though there is plus here, you don't have to write plus, which is 3, because 39 times 3 is this. But remember that the 13 is negative. So if I should write positive 3, negative 13 times positive 3 will not give you 39. So therefore, we are going to say, negative 3. Then bracket close. So this gives you negative 13x y minus 3. So for this one, it's very simple, okay? It's very, very simple. All you need to do or know is that we are trying to bring the common terms out. The one that is here, that is also here, should be brought out. That is the factorization. Good. Let's look at the number 4. You have 5y plus 2y squared plus 3y. Since there is y here, there is also y here, we should first group like things. Okay? So we have 5y plus 3y plus 2y squared. Adding this will give you 8y plus 2y squared. So we can now factorize. First factor the coefficient of the variable, which is 8 and 2. Now 8 and 2, the highest factor is 2. So factor the 2 out. Now if the 2 is out, you have the variable to be y and y squared here. Now the variable in this happens to be the same, but they are different in terms of quantity. The y here is 1 and the y here is 2. So we have to bring the one that will favor both expressions, which is y. So you bring the least variable out. You don't bring y squared here, because the y here is 1 and the y here is 2. So now that we've brought, or we've been able to bring out the common terms, what do? We introduce a bracket. So what number times 2y will give you 8y? Is 4. And what number times 2y will give you 2y squared? Is y. So the y are 2, 1 is out, you are left with what? 1. So your answer is 2y bracket of 4 plus y. And this is very simple for you to get the concept in factorization. Then number 5, I throw it as a challenge. Let's give it a try. Remember, we are looking at factorization involving simple binomials, or factorizing expressions having simple binomials. We will end it here for today, then we'll continue, God willing, next time, if God permits. We've looked at how to factorize expressions that have simple binomials, and we are saying that to factorize, we first factorize the coefficient of the variables, which is the numbers, by looking for the highest common factor. Then when you look at the variables, you bring out the common variables in each, then you introduce a bracket and take it from there. Note that your answer after factorizing should be the same as the question when simplified. We'll come again with linear inequalities. We've already looked at linear equations, which is in our video. We've already uploaded it in our previous videos. And so when we meet next time, we will look at linear inequalities. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Bye-bye.